Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. This is going to be the third webinar of our series. Today, we'll be covering the SignES integration. In the first webinar, we talked about the general context, the legal overview of the Verifactu regulation. In the second, we talked about the technical aspects, and today we'll cover the integration of our product of SignES. And today I have Lukas, who is one of our lead developers for SignES. Good morning, Lukas.
Good morning, everyone.
So we will wait for, I would say, one more minute so that everyone can join. In any case, after the webinar, we will send you the videos, the recording as in the previous webinar so that you can review it and watch it again. And we'll also upload it in YouTube. Also, take please the chance to ask any technical questions you may have. You can do so in the Q&A section, okay, up there. So yeah, just text your questions and we'll try to solve them. If there are too many, we'll reply to them on an individual basis, okay? So basically, today, what we'll do is we'll do a bit of an overview again of the Verifactu regulation. Very briefly, the idea is to concentrate the webinar on the SignES integration and your doubts. So I'll very briefly go over the Anti-Fraud Law, the Verifactu regulation, how you can comply with Verifactu, how the SignES work where Lukas will take over and show you a bit, where to find this stuff and how to proceed, how to start, etc. And then we'll also talk a bit at the end about the benefits of the integration of our API. Okay, so I can see that most of the attendants already came, so we can start. So again, I think that most of you are recurring attendants, so you already know about Verifactu, but just a brief overview. Verifactu is a law that will affect all legal entities, all self-employed, with a fiscal address or a legal address in Spain, okay, in the whole territory, but outside the Basque country and Navarra. It will only affect those taxpayers with an annual revenue below 6 million euros. Those that have an annual revenue above 6 million euros have to comply with SII, another law that has been in place since 2017. The thing about this law, as we've mentioned in previous webinars, is that software developers, software vendors are also responsible and basically have to have a compliant solution. And basically, or how we have seen that it also affects software developers, is that we can get a fine of up to 150k euros per fiscal year and system. So it's it's a law that not only affects taxpayers, but also software developers and vendors, and is something we really need to take care of. So what's the timeline? What's the situation? The ministerial order was published on the 28th. Then since that date, the 9-month period started. In that 9-month period till the 29th of July, software vendors have to take care of this matter. They have to have a compliant solution. And then there will be another date for taxpayers, which is not official as of today, but from different sources that we have in the tax agency, we know that the most probable date will be January 2026. In the end, the important date for you is that the 29th of July, 2025, you must have a compliant solution. Regarding the technical requirements, very brief overview, we have to be able to generate a record per each issued invoice. Then we have to have stable internet connection to send these records to the tax authority. We have to be able to electronically sign them, especially for non-verifactu, although it is recommendable for verifactu. The big thing or the big change for business owners and for individuals, we have to be able to print a QR code in the invoices or receipts in any kind of sale that is made by any business that uses your software. And we have to be able to receive and process and act based on the responses from the tax authorities. Also, a big topic that we have been asked a lot is if there's any certification process, or what do I have to do in order to show that I comply with this. In Spain, there's no certification process as such. There's a responsibility, declaration of responsibility, which is basically a document that you have to fill out, basically stating that you believe that you comply with the regulation. In this case, we will issue our own responsibility declaration. You will also have to issue your declaration of responsibility, and we will help you through this process. Okay, it's true that we take care of most of the obligations of the Verifactu regulation, but it's true that one of the relevant aspects in the regulation is that when invoices are issued, they cannot be modified, they cannot be edited, and that is something that you need to take care of. In any case, once this responsibility or this declaration of responsibility document is shared, we will prepare a video that we will share with you so that you feel accompanied through this process. And again, we will help you in this regard in case you have any doubts. So how to comply with this regulation? As you know, well, you obviously have the possibility of doing it on your own, which is, of course, a lot more tedious, a lot more complex. You need to devote resources to it, etc. So we provide you, we think, a really valuable solution, which is the integration of SignES, which is just one single integration that will help you comply with the variety of the different fiscal regulations we have in Spain. So Ticket VI, Verifactu, Navarra, which is another regulation that will come, and the B2B invoicing. So it's basically just one integration, and we take care of the rest. I think that you all know how we work, but basically you do the integration. The recurring endpoint that you will be calling is the create an invoice endpoint. You send us in JSON the relevant data. We send them in real time to the tax authorities, and then back we will send you a URL which will have to be contained in the QR code. This is how we work. Why us? Well, we have experience in different international markets. We have very good connections with the tax authorities. We have experience handling enormous amounts of transactions. And for me, one of the top selling points for us is that we have a really good technical product, very detailed and very easy to integrate. And of course, it's always maintained and constantly updated. Before handing over to Lukas, a bit of an overview of the SignES features, we'll be able to send you the URL that you will have to put in the QR code. We will do the chaining of the records, the electronic signing of the files. We also have a validation on our side before the validations of the tax authority, so that you can perhaps avoid rejected files. Of course, we do the submission to the tax authorities, and you also have the possibility to have those files stored and you can do any exports if needed, which are also part of the obligation of the regulation. And now I'll hand over to Lukas. He will be explaining to us a bit how the sign-years work, where to go, how to do the sign-up, etc. So whenever you want, Lukas.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eduardo, for all your insights on our solution. My name is Lukas. I'm the lead developer of SignES. So mainly in charge of creating all the new features. Currently, of course, Verifactu. The integration is, I would say, very easy. It consists of a two-phase step, basically, which integrates two APIs of ours. One is the management API, and the other one is the SignES API. The management API takes charge of all the management aspects, where you can create organizations and so on. And the SignES API does the heavy lifting, creating invoices, signing, etc. Where I wanted to start is
Sorry to stop you, Lukas. Sorry to stop
yes.
you. I think we're not listening to you very properly. Could you try with I don't know if it's the headphones or
Okay. Is this now better, or can you hear me now?
yes.
It's now better.
Yes, I think
Okay.
yes, now better.
Just
Yeah, it was a
just
mix.
putting the microphone nearer to the mouth. Okay. Um, okay, so I wanted to start with the developer documentation. Let me just,
So you just said, Lucas, that there are two APIs, right? The management API, then the SignES API, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Um,
we didn't hear that part that well.
okay, so shortly, there are two APIs, the management API and the SignES API. The management does all the management stuff, creating organizations, creating API keys, and so on. And the SignES API does the heavy lifting, creating invoices, doing the transmission to the authorities, and so on. You can find most of the information in our guide. So there you can also download the API specification. You find a lot of information on how receipt should look, what are the different legislations, tutorials, guides, how many versions we already published and what changed then. And what's most important, I think, is the quick start, where it is described how you can actually integrate our solution very quickly, or test it at least. And this involves the management dashboard, which is also available through an API, but I think it's most easy to take the first steps on the dashboard. And it involves Postman. So we have a dedicated Postman collection with all the main flows, I would say. And you can create then also your own invoices and so on, and test it out if it works. This usually is only used in the test environment, but technically you could also use it for live, of course. I will show you the dashboard and how the creation of organizations work next. So what you need to do is actually go to dashboard fiskaly.com. You can log in, for example, with a Google account, or create another account. And the first thing that you need to do is to create an organization. We have two types of organizations. One is a main organization and one is a managed organization. The important part for SignES is that you can only use a managed organization to create invoices. Because, for example, you could be a POS vendor that has many taxpayers as clients, or you could be an organization that has many different locations, etc. And for that, you could create the main organization and various managed organizations underneath. Creating an organization is easy. You select the country. Here we are in Austria, so we'll select Austria. You create a name. My name is Lukas, or the name of the organization. you need to create an address. And then you can optionally leave already billing information, but I think for a test, this is not strictly needed. And then we have a new organization, a new main organization ready. And to actually use SignES, what we need to do is click here and now create a new organization. And now the important step is to actually select here, create a managed organization, which is part of the Lukas test webinar main organization. So, and we now have our managed organization ready. And the next step here would be to actually create an API key. Here. So, and this API key is now here shared only. So we need to copy it and put it in our Postman collection. But I think this can be done at a later point. I've prepared everything already in Postman. So, but these would be the important part where we need to store this information somewhere. So we can now then switch to Postman actually. Just a second.
Lucas, one question before you move on, because this is something that they usually ask to us. So, do you recurrently go to the dashboard and do this for every managed organization? How can you automate this process?
Okay,
How can
so
you do
there is also actually an API for the dashboard, I would say, or for the management. It is called Management API, where you can also create organizations, create managed organizations, delete organizations, and so on. So there is also an API available for that. Depending, I would say, on your customer size, if it is manageable by hand, so in the dashboard, or to use the API instead if you have maybe a few hundred customers, I don't know, then it would be desirable, of course, to do it there.
Perfect. So just as a clarification, you will have to do the process that Lucas just showed for the first time when you do the sign up. Let's say that
The
you have to create
onboarding, I would say.
the onboarding. That's it. That you have to create the main organization and then the managed organization that falls under that main organization. The rest can be automated. If you have very few customers, you could do it manually in the dashboard.
Yeah. The important thing is also that per default, of course, you will only be able to access the test environment. And the live enablement will only be done if you sign a contract, of course. Okay, let's switch to Postman now. I've already prepared the collection there. So also in the quick guide, you can download the Postman collection. You can download the environment accordingly and so on, which you can import in Postman, or you can use any other tool there. And we have different paths here, I would say, which is a different way of showing the capability of our API. We have the regular path, which mainly consists of logging in, creating the needed resources, and issuing invoices, and also doing exports. We also have additional invoicing use cases which I will go next. But first, let's see what we need to do with our managed organization API key that we just created. So the first thing, of course, we need to authenticate ourselves with our access token. The next thing is that we actually need to set up some taxpayer information. Here, this is our tax number or fiscally. And what's very important is also the legal name and, of course, the territory. Based on the territory, the different legislation will be selected. So, for example, if you're from a Basque region or the customer is from a Basque region, then it could implement here or say here Araba, then he will fall under the ticket buy legislation. For Verifactu, we currently support Spain Other, which is the mainland of Spain, but there are also, for example, Canary Islands. So when we need to create now a taxpayer, based on the tax number, it will also derive the type. So if you're an individual or a company, the next thing is that we need to create a signer to actually sign the invoices. This will select the default fiscal certificate if nothing other is provided. Then we need to create a client. A client should represent an issuing device like a POS. But it can also be some sort of software, for example. And this client uses then the signer that we created before to actually sign the invoices. We decided to also sign the Verifactu invoices, although it is technically not needed, but it is recommended. So now the most important thing is to actually create an invoice. We have here a default invoice. We sell a sombrero, for example, or 3 sombreros actually. We need to fill in the full amount, the number of the invoice, and a text, and so on. So this is the most basic information. And once we send that, we get back the image information, so a QR code that you can print on your invoice. We get also back this URL here, which is a validation link from the authorities. And what we also get back is the status of the invoice here. The most important thing is that it's currently in issued state. It is not canceled because, of course, we just created it, and the registration is in pending. This is because this all happens in our background process, which is asynchronously. But as of now, it should be already registered and transmitted, and we can do that if we select retrieve the invoice. Then we have here the state already registered. So this means it was transmitted to the authorities, it was registered there, and we have no validation errors got back. So everything was correct. What we could also do, for example, if we say, okay, we made a mistake, this invoice shouldn't be issued, we could cancel this invoice. This is just a patch operation where we say, okay, this should be canceled. And then we can retrieve the invoice again, and it's already canceled. This means, okay, it was already transmitted to the authorities that this invoice should be canceled. There are also, of course, a lot of other possible API requests. For example, you could list all the invoices of a specific client. You could export an invoice where you get the actual XML data of an invoice. So the payload that was transmitted to the authorities, you could create an export for a variety of invoices based on a time frame. And also some interesting cases are actually these here, where you, for example, can correct an invoice. So you want to subtract a unit because you sold 5 or 2 sombreros instead of 3. Then you can, for example, correct an invoice. And so on. So these are all the different possibilities that you have with our API. Okay, Eduardo, or any questions from your side?
Yes, I just wanted to make a clarification or just a couple notes. First of all, we recommend you to, on one screen, open up a Postman. On the second one, have our documentation open and just go to every endpoint and read it so that you can better understand it. Okay. Also, another note regarding the cancel invoice endpoint you just talked about. In here, we're actually, and it's specified in the documentation, we're not actually talking about, making an invoice disappear in cases. Sorry, again, the point would be, when do we have to cancel an invoice, okay, or when should we use this endpoint? This is in cases where a correction invoice is not required, okay? Because the law is very explicit on this, that once an invoice is issued, you cannot edit it, okay, or eliminate it. So, Lucas, do you want to add
So
a bit of that?
so the cancellation should actually only be used immediately. So you can't cancel an invoice half an hour later or so. But if you send the invoice with, for example, without having all the information in there, or you send the invoice and the customer decides in that moment, no, he doesn't need it, for example. This would be two options. Otherwise, of course, if the customer comes back to the shop and says, okay, this doesn't work, or I don't need everything, then you need to issue a correction.
Perfect. Okay. Is there anything else on your side, Lucas, that you want to share, or this is mostly it?
This is mostly it. One thing I wanted to share was actually the documentation from the guide, or what comes after the guide, I would say. So all these stuffs I just showed, they are very explicitly explained here with examples, with all the details in here. So with all the content options, what you can issue there. Here, for example, which territories we support. What also what's possible is to create a signer. You can retrieve the signers, list the signers, same for clients. There is also this metadata functionality for every resource in our API, which you can use to store additional information. For example, you need to link it to your own management system, for example, and you say, okay, you have like there an ID, then you can say, okay, this is the ID of the client in my system, for example, and there you can link it. There is also the software endpoint where you can retrieve the software information. So like, okay, what version is there? There is also one upcoming field in there, which is the compliance, which has a compliance aspect for Verifactu. And there's also, of course, the daily, we call it daily operation, where you can create invoices or modify the invoice state. So for example, the cancellation of an invoice is actually an updating of the invoice resource in our system, and everything that follows, so creating the request to the authorities, canceling it, reading the response, and everything is then abstracted in our API.
Okay. So, I think that you gave a really good overview of where to find the things and so on. In any case, as many of you know, once or after you talk to us, we send you all the relevant links where you can find all the information. But as you can see, I think it's really well documented. It's explained when things are to be used, when not. So please, I would suggest to really read carefully through the documentation, and again, in another screen, use the Postman and start testing. Okay. Actually, in there where you're showing, Lucas, we have the different types of invoices that we cover. Again, it's all in the documentation, and yeah, I think it's really, really well detailed. Okay, so I'll take over the presentation again. Can you stop sharing, Lucas? Okay. Okay, can you see my screen or can you
We
see
can
my
see the
screen?
slide. The slides, I would say.
Okay, the slide. Yeah, the slide is fine. The slide is fine. Again, I understand that many questions will pop up later. You know that if you have your contract signed with us, you can access the support team. They will assist you. So yeah, again, don't hesitate to write any question in the chat or afterwards after doing some testing. Okay, so what are the benefits of the integration? I think that we already talked about it, but basically it's and I totally understand that for many of you that are located in a different country, it's really difficult to to really understand this, to get over all the documentation even in another language, maintaining it, etc. So you can just do the integration, rely on us. You know how we work, or many of you know how we work. So we think it makes a lot of sense, and basically provides you peace of mind. So yeah, in there you have the benefits, but to be honest, I think that it's the peace of mind what's important when integrating SignYes. And then why fiscally? Well, you know us. We basically have a really dominant position in Germany, which is where we started in the very beginning. We're basically following the example in other countries where laws are changing or where new fiscal laws have been released. As many of you know, we have over 650K POSs doing transactions every day. We're talking about, and Lukas, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's even more than 100 million transactions per day, right? That we carry out. You don't know. Okay.
Not in SignYes, but I think. Yeah.
Not in SignYes, not in SignYes, globally. But basically, the idea is that we're a reliable partner, and we really take fiscal laws very seriously. And that's it on our side. Again, if you have any questions, please shoot a message to us. I think we don't have any questions at the moment. Oh, yes, we have one, right? Oh, no, that's fine. We have no questions. So again, you know where to find us. So please test it, reach out to us. And I think that's all from us. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you too, and have a nice day.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.